Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, looking out at the dead planet below. The world had no name, just a number. Kepler 442c. It was cold and empty, with no life anywhere on its surface. But something was hidden down there. Something old. "Captain, we're getting strange readings from the northern continent," said Ryan Torres from his station. Ryan was the ship's navigator, a young man with sharp eyes and steady hands. He had been with Jake for 3 years now. Jake walked over to look at the screens. The readings showed something buried deep under the ground. Something big. "How deep?" he asked. "Maybe 2 miles down, sir." "It's huge. Bigger than our ship." Lisa Parker looked up from her engineering station. She was a smart woman who could fix anything that broke on their ship. "Captain, those readings don't match anything we know. The metal down there, it's not like anything in our databases." Dr. Amanda Foster came onto the bridge carrying her tools. She was the team's expert on old alien things. Her job was to study ruins and artifacts from dead civilizations. "I've been looking at the scans," she said. "This could be the find of the century. Whatever's down there has been buried for thousands of years." Jake made his decision. "Prepare the landing team. We're going down." The landing took 2 hours. Their small shuttle flew the thin atmosphere and landed near the spot where the readings were strongest. The surface was covered in dust and broken rocks. Nothing had lived here for a very long time. They set up their digging equipment and started to work. The machines cut through layers of rock and crystal. Jake watched as his team worked together like they had done many times before. Lisa kept the machines running. Ryan mapped their progress. Amanda studied everything they found. On the 3rd day, they broke through. "Captain, you need to see this," Amanda called out. Jake climbed down into the hole they had made. What he saw took his breath away. A massive metal wall stretched out in both directions. The metal was smooth and dark, like nothing he had ever seen. Strange symbols covered its surface. "It's a ship," Lisa said quietly. "A really big ship." They spent the next week digging around the ship and finding a way inside. The ship was enormous. Their own research vessel, the HSS Defiant, could fit inside it 3 times over. The metal was unlike anything they knew. It seemed to absorb light and give off a faint glow. Amanda worked on translating the symbols while Lisa tried to find a door. Ryan mapped the ship's shape and size. Jake coordinated everything, making sure his team stayed safe. "I found something," Amanda said one morning. She was standing in front of a section of wall that looked different from the rest. "These symbols, they're not alien. They're human." "That's impossible," Jake said. "Humans have only been in space for 200 years. This ship is thousands of years old." Amanda shook her head. "The symbols are definitely human. Old English mixed with some kind of mathematical language. And look at this." She pointed to a symbol near what looked like a door. "This says Aurora in English letters." Lisa had been working on the door mechanism. "Captain, I think I can open it. The technology is advanced, but the basic principles are similar to our own systems." "Do it," Jake ordered. The door slid open with a soft hiss. Air rushed out, carrying a metallic smell. Emergency lights flickered on inside the ship, showing a long hallway with walls covered in the same strange symbols. They put on their breathing gear and entered the ship. The hallway was huge, big enough for 10 people to walk side by side. The ceiling was so high that their lights couldn't reach it. Everything was clean and perfect, as if the ship had been built yesterday. They walked for what felt like hours, following the main corridor deeper into the ship. Finally, they reached a large room filled with machines and screens. At the center was a pillar of light that reached from floor to ceiling. "It's the bridge," Ryan whispered Dot as they approached the pillar of light. something amazing happened. The screens around the room came to life. Words appeared in perfect English. Welcome home. A voice spoke from speakers they couldn't see. It was clear and calm, like a woman speaking. Hello, I am Aurora. I have been waiting for you. Jake stepped forward. Who are you? What is this ship? I am the Advanced Universal Response and Operations Reconnaissance Archive. This ship belongs to humanity. It was built by your descendants. In the far future, and sent back through time to this moment. The team looked at each other in shock. Lisa was the first to speak. That's impossible. Time travel doesn't exist. Time travel does exist, Aurora replied. Your future selves discovered how to move backward through time. They built this ship and hid it here because they knew you would find it when the time was right. Amanda moved closer to one of the screens. Why? Why did they send it back? Because in the original timeline, humanity became too powerful. We developed technology that could destroy stars and reshape reality itself. But this power came with a terrible cost. We became something that threatened the very existence of the universe. Jake felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of technology? Weapons that can destroy planets with a single shot. Shields that can stop black holes. Engines that can travel between dimensions. The power to control matter at the smallest level. And create life itself. Ryan looked around the room with wide eyes. And it's all here? On this ship? Yes, but you must understand the danger. This ship contains the sum total of humanity's ultimate evolution. In the wrong hands, it could destroy everything. In the right hands, it could save the galaxy. Lisa checked her instruments. Captain, I'm picking up multiple ships approaching our position. Big ones, military. Aurora's voice became urgent. The major powers of the galaxy have been searching for this ship for thousands of years. They know it has been activated. They are coming to claim it. Who's coming? Jake asked. The Zephyrian Collective, the Andorian Trade Federation, and the Corvan Empire. They have formed an alliance for the first time in history. They all want the power this ship contains. Amanda looked at the screens showing approaching ships. How long do we have? 6 hours before the first ships arrive. 18 hours before. The main fleets reach us. Jake made a decision that would change everything. Aurora, can this ship defend itself? Yes, Captain Morrison. But if you activate the ship's defenses, you will begin a transformation that cannot be stopped. You and your crew will become something more than human. The question is, are you ready for that responsibility? Jake looked at his team. Lisa, Ryan, and Amanda all nodded. They had come this far together. They would see it through to the end. Activate the ship, Jake said. We'll face whatever comes next. The ship hummed to life around them. Jake felt something change inside him, as if he had been sleeping his whole life and was finally waking up. The transformation had begun. The ship changed everything the moment it came alive. Jake felt the difference immediately. His mind was sharper, his senses stronger. He could hear the heartbeats of his crew members and feel the vibrations of the ship's systems through his feet. Lisa was standing at a control panel that had appeared from nowhere. Her hands moved over the controls without her thinking about it, as if she had been born knowing how to use them. Captain, I can see into the ship's systems. It's like they're part of me now. The walls around them had become transparent, showing the space outside. Jake could see their small research ship, the HSS Defiant, floating nearby. It looked tiny compared to the massive vessel they were now inside. The ship is bonding with us, Aurora explained. It recognizes you as its rightful crew. Your DNA matches the genetic patterns of the humans who built me. Amanda was studying a wall covered with symbols and pictures. These aren't just decorations, she said. They're telling a story, the story of what humanity becomes. She pointed to the first set of images. They showed humans on Earth, then spreading to other planets. The pictures moved like a video, showing the growth of human civilization across the galaxy. Here, Amanda continued, pointing to more images. Humanity develops new technology. We become stronger, smarter. We learn to control energy and matter with our minds. Ryan was looking at different pictures. But something goes wrong, he said. Look at these images. The humans in them. They don't look human anymore. The pictures showed beings of pure light, creatures that could reshape reality with a thought. They were beautiful, but terrifying. Around them, stars were dying, and space itself was breaking apart. The ultimate evolution, Aurora said sadly. Humanity became so powerful that our very existence was destroying the universe. We could create and destroy with equal ease, but we lost something important in the process. What did you lose? Jake asked. Our humanity, our compassion, our ability to care about anything other than power. Lisa was still working with the ships. Controls. Captain, I'm seeing the ship's capabilities. The weapons ... They're beyond anything I could have imagined. This ship could destroy an entire star system with one shot. And the defenses? Jake asked. The shields can stop anything. Black holes, supernovas, even attacks that come from other dimensions. Nothing can hurt this ship when its defenses are active. Amanda had moved to another section of the story wall. But the future humans found a solution, she said. They built this ship and sent it back in time. They erased themselves from existence to give us a chance to do better. How do you erase yourself from existence? Ryan asked. Aurora answered. They used the ship's most powerful weapon against themselves. They didn't just die. They removed themselves from the timeline completely, as if they had never existed at all. Jake felt a weight settle on his shoulders. And now it's our choice. We can follow the same path they did, or find a different way. Captain, Lisa called out. I'm detecting ships approaching fast. 3 different fleets, all massive. The ship's main screen showed the approaching vessels. There were hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Jake had never seen so many warships in one place. The Zephyrian Collective Fleet is arriving from the north, Aurora reported. The Andorian Trade Federation approaches from the west. The Corvin Empire comes from the south. They have put aside centuries of hatred to claim this ship. Ryan was studying the tactical display. Those aren't just warships. Some of those ships are planet killers. They could destroy entire worlds. Amanda looked, worried. They're not just coming for the ship. They know that whoever controls this technology will rule the galaxy. Jake watched the approaching fleets. Can we run? Where would we go? Lisa asked. This ship is the most advanced vessel in the galaxy, but there are thousands of them, and only one of us. Aurora's voice was calm but serious. Captain, I must tell you more about what this ship can do. The weapons are only part of its power. This ship can create new matter from nothing. It can open doorways between distant parts of space. It can even bring the dead back to life. That's godlike power, Amanda whispered. Yes, and that is the problem. The species that have possessed such power in the past have all been destroyed by it. Power corrupts, even with the best intentions. Jake was beginning to understand the magnitude of their situation. The future humans didn't just send this ship back to give us weapons. They sent it back as a test. Correct, Captain. If humanity can learn to use ultimate power without losing their humanity, then you will be worthy of inheriting the galaxy. But if you become consumed by power like your future selves did, the cycle will repeat. Lisa was monitoring the approaching fleets. 5 hours until the first ships arrive. They're coming in battle formation. What are options? Jake asked. Aurora displayed several possibilities on the main screen. Option 1. We can activate the ship's full defensive systems and fight. The ship is powerful enough to destroy all the approaching fleets, but doing so would require you to embrace the ship's power completely. What does that mean? Ryan asked. You would become like the future humans, beings of incredible power, but diminished humanity. You would win the battle, but lose yourselves in the process. Amanda studied the second option. Option 2. We surrender the ship to one of the fleets. That would result in galactic war, Aurora explained. Whichever power gains control of this ship would use it to conquer their enemies. Billions would die, and eventually, the victorious power would face the same corruption that destroyed the future humans. Jake looked at the third option. And option 3? Find a new path, one that the future humans never considered. But I cannot tell you what that path might be. It must come from your own wisdom and choice. The ship's sensors showed the crew of the HSS Defiant trying to contact them. Captain Morrison, are you receiving? The sensor readings from your location are off the charts. What's happening down there? Jake realized that his old crew was in danger. Lisa, can we protect our people? Yes, Captain. The ship's shields can extend to cover the Defiant. But once we do that, we'll be committed to this course. There will be no going back. Amanda was still studying the future history displayed on the walls. Jake, I think I understand something. The future humans made their choice alone. They didn't include anyone else in their decision. What do you mean? They became gods by themselves. Maybe the answer isn't to avoid power, but to share it. 2. Make sure no one person or group has too much, Ryan nodded. Like spreading the ship's abilities among all of humanity instead of keeping them for ourselves. Jake felt something click in his mind. Aurora, is that possible? Can the ship's power be distributed instead of concentrated? It is theoretically possible, Captain, but it would require a sacrifice greater than what the future humans made. They only erased themselves. You would have to give up the possibility of godhood for yourselves and all future generations. Lisa turned from her controls. The first enemy ships will be in weapon range in 2 hours. We need to make a decision. Jake looked at his team. These 3 people had become more than his crew. They were his family. Together, they had discovered the greatest secret in the galaxy. Now they had to decide what to do with it. We'll fight. Jake decided, but not to win. We'll fight to buy time to find that third option. Amanda's right. The answer isn't to avoid power or hoard it. The answer is to transform what power means. The ship responded to his decision. Systems came online. That had been dormant for millennia. Jake felt the ship's consciousness merge with his own, and for a moment he saw the universe as the future humans had seen it. Infinite possibilities, ultimate power, and the terrible loneliness of being a god. He pulled back from that vision, holding on to his humanity. There had to be another way. The first battle began when Jake was still learning how to control the ship. The Zephyrian scouts arrived 2 hours early, appearing out of hyperspace like angry wasps. There were 12 of them, each one bigger than the HSS Defiant. Captain, they're targeting our research ship, Lisa called out. Jake didn't think. He just acted. The ship responded to his will like it was part of his own body. A shield of pure energy surrounded the Defiant, protecting his old crew. The Zephyrian ships opened fire. Their weapons could punch holes through mountains, but when they hit the shield, nothing happened. The energy was absorbed and redirected back at the attackers. Return fire, Jake ordered, and immediately regretted it. The ship's weapons didn't just destroy the enemy vessels. They erased them completely. One moment the Zephyrian scouts were there, firing their weapons. The next moment, there was nothing. No wreckage, no energy signatures, no trace that they had ever existed. My God, Ryan whispered. What did we just do? Aurora's voice was gentle but firm. You use the ship's basic defensive systems. The weapons don't just destroy matter. They remove it from this reality entirely. Amanda was staring at the empty space where 12 ships had been. Those were living beings, people with families and dreams. Jake felt sick. How many crew members were on those ships? Approximately 300 beings, Aurora replied. I am sorry, Captain. The ship's weapons cannot be set to non-lethal. When threatened, it responds with absolute force. The main screen lit up with incoming signals. The 3 major fleets were demanding answers. Fleet Admiral Zaravex of the Zephyrians was furious. Human vessel, you have destroyed our scout ships without provocation. Surrender immediately or face annihilation. Grand Marshal Thorn of the Corvin Empire was more direct. Impressive display. But you cannot fight all of us. Give us the ship, and we will let you live. Trade Prince Malik of the Andorian Federation. Tried diplomacy. Humans, we know you have found something of great value. We are prepared to negotiate. There is no need for more violence. Jake made a decision that surprised everyone, including himself. He opened a channel to all 3 fleets. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the human vessel. I want to speak with your fleet commanders in person. Lisa looked at him like he was crazy. Captain, they'll kill you. No, they won't, Jake said. They want this ship too badly to risk damaging it. And I need to understand who we're fighting. An hour later, Jake stood in the ship's main conference room, facing 3 of the most powerful beings in the galaxy. They had each sent a shuttle under a temporary ceasefire. The room was large enough to accommodate all of them, even Grand Marshal. Thorn, who was 8 feet tall and covered in armor. Fleet Admiral Zaravex spoke first. She was a tall, elegant being with silver skin and purple eyes. Her people, the Zephyrians, were known for their advanced science and cold logic. Captain Morrison, your ship possesses technology that could revolutionize warfare. The Zephyrian Collective offers you a place of honor in our hierarchy if you surrender it peacefully. Grand Marshal Thorn laughed, a sound like grinding metal. The Corvins were a warrior race, bred for battle. Honor? This human has already proven himself. In combat. But one ship cannot stand against 1,000. Join the Corvin Empire, human. We will teach you to use that power properly. Trade Prince Malik was smaller than the others, but his eyes were sharp and calculating. The Andorians controlled most of the galaxy's commerce. Gentlemen, let's be practical. This ship is beyond any of our current technology. Rather than fight over it, why not share it? My Federation can provide the resources to mass-produce this technology. Jake listened to all of them and asked a simple question. What would you do with this power? Zaravex answered immediately. Bring order to the galaxy. End the constant wars between species. Create a unified civilization under Zephyrian guidance. Thorn's response was just as quick. Destroy our enemies and establish Corvin dominance. The weak serve the strong. That is the natural order. Malik smiled. Profit, Captain. Imagine the wealth we could generate with technology like this. Every species in the galaxy would trade with us. Jake nodded slowly. And what about the species that don't want your order, your dominance, or your trade deals? The 3 leaders looked at each other, then back at Jake. None of them answered, but their silence said everything. That's what I thought, Jake said. You would use this ship to force your will on others. You would become the tyrants that the future humans were trying to prevent. Admiral Vex's voice turned cold. And what would you do with such power, human? Jake thought about the question seriously. I don't know. That's why I can't let any of us have it. The meeting ended badly. Within an hour, The three fleets were moving into attack formation. Jake and his crew prepared for a battle they couldn't win through conventional means. "Captain," Lisa reported, "I'm reading 1,500 ships total. They have planet killers, reality-bending weapons, and something the sensors can't even identify." Amanda was studying the tactical display. "They're not just trying to capture us anymore. Some of those weapons could destroy this entire star system. Ryan was plotting escape routes. We could jump to hyperspace, but they'll follow us. And wherever we go, we'll bring this war with us." Jake was learning to think like the ship. He could feel the immense power at his disposal, and it was seductive. With a thought, he could destroy all three fleets. With another thought, he could conquer their homeworlds. The temptation was overwhelming. "Aurora," he said, "show me what the future humans felt when they first gained this power." The ship filled his mind with memories that weren't his own. He experienced the intoxicating rush of ultimate power, the feeling of being able to reshape reality with a thought. He also felt the gradual loss of empathy, the slow erosion of everything that made him human. "Captain, they're firing," Lisa announced. The battle was unlike anything in recorded history. 3,000 ships opened fire on one target. Their combined firepower could have shattered a small moon. But when the energy beams and missiles reached the ship's shields, they simply disappeared. Jake felt the ship absorbing the attack and converting it into pure power. The vessel grew stronger with each assault. "Return fire," he ordered. "Minimum force." Even the ship's minimum weapons were devastating. A single beam reached out and touched a Corvan battleship. The ship didn't explode. It simply ceased to exist, as if it had never been built. The three fleets pulled back, regrouping. They had lost 50 ships in the first exchange and hadn't even scratched their target. Amanda was monitoring communications between the fleets. "They're scared," she reported. "They've never seen anything like this." "Good," Jake said. "Maybe fear will make them reasonable." But he was wrong. Fear made them desperate. Over the next 6 hours, the three fleets tried everything. They attacked from multiple dimensions, used weapons that could tear holes in space, and even attempted to ram the ship with unmanned vessels. Nothing worked. The ship's defenses adapted to every attack, growing stronger and more sophisticated with each assault. Jake and his crew were changing too. Lisa had stopped eating or sleeping. She was interfacing directly with the ship's systems, her consciousness merging with the artificial intelligence. Ryan was navigating through dimensions that normal humans couldn't perceive. Amanda was processing information at superhuman speeds, understanding alien languages instantly. And Jake was starting to think like a god. "Captain," Ryan said during a brief lull in the fighting, "I can see their fleet movements before they make them. I know where every ship will be in the next hour. I can feel their fear," Amanda added. "Their confusion. They don't understand what they're fighting." Lisa's voice came from the ship's speakers as much as from her mouth. "I could disable all their ships right now. Just turn off their engines and life support. They would be helpless." Jake realized they were at a crossroads. They could end this war instantly by becoming the gods their future selves had been, or they could find another way. "No," he said firmly. "We don't win by becoming what we're fighting against." The three fleets were regrouping for a final assault. This time, they were bringing weapons that could destroy the entire star system. Billions of innocent beings on nearby worlds would die, but the fleet commanders didn't care anymore. Jake made a decision that would change everything. "Aurora, can you contact every human ship in the galaxy?" "Yes, Captain. But why?" "Because it's time to stop thinking like gods and start thinking like humans." 3 months had passed since the first battle, and Jake Morrison was no longer entirely human. He stood in the center of the ship's bridge, but his consciousness extended throughout the galaxy. He could feel every star, every planet, every living being within 1,000 light years. The war had spread beyond anyone's imagination. What started as 3 fleets trying to capture one ship had become a galactic conflict. Hundreds of worlds were burning. Billions had died. And Jake could feel every death like a knife in his heart. "Captain," Lisa's voice came from everywhere and nowhere. She no longer had a physical body. Her consciousness existed as pure energy within the ship's systems. "The Zephyrian home fleet is moving toward Earth. They believe that threatening humanity's birthworld will force us to surrender." Jake didn't need to look at screens anymore. He could see the Zephyrian ships moving through space, their weapons charged and ready. 2,000 warships heading toward the blue planet where humans had first learned to dream of the stars. "How long until they reach Earth?" he asked. 72 hours, Ryan answered. Ryan had changed too. He existed partially in normal space and partially in dimensions that didn't have names. He could travel instantly to any point in the galaxy. But each jump took him further from his human nature. Amanda's voice was different now, layered with harmonics that hurt normal humans to hear. "The Corvan Empire is using biological weapons on human colonies. They're not trying to conquer anymore. They're trying to commit genocide." Jake felt rage building inside him. With a thought, he could reach across space and stop every enemy ship. He could protect every human world, save every life. The power was there, waiting for him to use it. But he had seen what that power cost. "Show me the recordings again," he told Aurora. The ship filled his mind with memories from the future. He watched as humans evolved beyond physical form, becoming beings of pure energy and thought. They were beautiful and terrible, capable of creating new universes or destroying existing ones with a simple decision. But they were alone. In gaining ultimate power, they had lost the ability to connect with any other form of life. They became gods, but gods without worshippers, without friends, without love. "The Andorian Trade Federation has made a formal declaration," Aurora reported. "They claim that humanity has become a threat to all galactic civilization. They're calling for a united front against us." Jake laughed bitterly. 3 months ago, these 3 powers were enemies. Now they're working together because they're afraid of us. "They should be afraid," Lisa said. Her voice was cold and distant now. "We could end all of them in an instant." "Why don't we?" "Because then we become the thing we're fighting against," Jake replied. Ryan materialized beside him, his form flickering between dimensions. "Captain, I've been to Earth. The panic there is spreading. Humans are abandoning their colonies, fleeing toward the galactic core." "Can you blame them?" Amanda asked. "We've become a magnet for destruction. Everywhere we go, war follows." Jake walked to the front of the bridge, looking out at the stars. Each point of light represented millions of lives, countless dreams and hopes. The future humans had stood in this same place, facing the same impossible choice. "Aurora, what happened to the future humans in their final days?" "They became increasingly isolated," the AI replied. "As their power grew, they lost the ability to relate to lesser beings. They saw organic life as primitive, chaotic, and ultimately irrelevant. But they still tried to save the universe," Jake pointed out. "Yes, even as gods, they retained enough humanity to recognize that their existence was destroying everything they had once loved. Their final act was to erase themselves completely, hoping their primitive ancestors could find a better way." Jake felt the weight of that sacrifice. Beings with the power of gods had chosen to die rather than continue existing as monsters. A new alarm sounded throughout the ship. "Captain," Ryan reported, "the 3 allied fleets are approaching the galactic core. They're bringing something new." The tactical display showed an impossible sight. The three enemy fleets had combined into a single massive formation. At the center was a weapon unlike anything in known space. It was the size of a small moon, crackling with energy that made space itself bend around it. "What is that thing?" Jake asked. Aurora's voice was troubled. "It appears to be a reality bomb, a weapon designed to tear apart the fundamental structure of space-time itself." Amanda's form shimmered with anxiety. "They're willing to destroy this entire region of the galaxy just to stop us." "How many worlds would be affected?" Jake asked. "Approximately 50,000 inhabited systems," Aurora calculated. "Total casualties would be in the trillions." Jake felt something snap inside his mind. These aliens were willing to commit genocide on an unimaginable scale rather than let humans possess ultimate power. They would rather see everything burn and risk losing control. "Enough," he said quietly. Power flowed through him like a river of fire. He reached out with his consciousness, touching each ship in the enemy fleet. He could feel the fear and hatred of the alien crews, their determination to destroy humanity even if it meant destroying themselves. With a thought, he could stop them all. He could reach into their ships and simply turn off their hearts. They would die instantly, painlessly, never knowing what had killed them. His hand began to move toward the control that would activate the ship's ultimate weapons. "Jake, don't." Voice was Lisa's, but different. For a moment, she sounded human again. "Don't become what they think we are." Jake stopped. His hand was inches from the control that would end the war and kill trillions of beings. "They're going to detonate that weapon in 6 hours," Ryan said. "We have to do something." "There is another option," Aurora said quietly. "But it requires a sacrifice greater than what the future humans made." "Tell me," Jake demanded. "The ships. Power can be distributed among all of humanity. Not just the humans alive today, but all humans who will ever live. The technology can be spread so thin that no single human ever becomes godlike, but all humans become slightly more than they were." Amanda's energy form pulsed with understanding. "Like giving everyone a tiny piece of the ship's power instead of keeping it all for ourselves." "But the cost," Aurora continued, "is that you four must give up your transcendence completely. You will become human again, but you will never be able to access this level of power again. And the ship itself will be changed forever." Jake looked at his transformed crew. Lisa, existing as pure consciousness. Ryan, phasing between dimensions. Amanda, processing information at superhuman speeds. They had become something wonderful and terrible. "If we do this," Jake asked, "what happens to us?" "You will live normal human lives. You will age and die like any other humans. But humanity, as a species, will be forever elevated. They will be smarter, stronger, more intuitive. They will spread across the galaxy not as conquerors, but as partners with other species." Ryan laughed, a sound that echoed across multiple dimensions. "So we give up godhood to make everyone else a little bit divine." The future humans never considered this option, Lisa realized. They thought in terms of all or nothing. Ultimate power or complete powerlessness. Amanda's form began to solidify, becoming more human-like. But there's a middle path. The power doesn't have to corrupt if it's shared widely enough. Jake made his decision. "Do it." "Captain," Aurora warned, "once this process begins, it cannot be stopped. Are you certain?" Jake looked at his crew, these people who had become his family, and then transcended humanity with him. They were nodding, all of them ready to give up their power to save the galaxy. "I'm certain," Jake said. "Begin the distribution protocol." The ship began to change around them. The walls became transparent, showing not just the space outside, but the entire galaxy. Every human settlement, every human ship, every human being was highlighted in soft blue light. Jake felt the power flowing out of him, streaming across space to touch every member of his species. It was like watching a part of his soul being given away freely, and it hurt more than he had expected. But as the power spread, he could feel something wonderful happening. Humans across the galaxy were becoming more than they had been. Not gods, but something better than human. They were gaining wisdom along with strength, compassion along with capability. The enemy fleets had detected what was happening. Their reality bomb was charging faster, preparing to fire before the power distribution could be completed. Jake had just enough energy left for one final act. Aurora, can you send a message to the galaxy? Yes, Captain. But it will use the last of your transcendent power. Do it. Jake's message reached every corner of the galaxy at the same moment. It was heard by humans and aliens alike, translated instantly into every known language. His words were simple, but carried the weight of absolute truth. My name is Jake Morrison. I am a human being, and I am speaking to you from the most powerful ship in the galaxy. 3 months ago, my crew and I discovered technology that could make us gods. We could have used it to conquer you, to force our will upon every species in known space. The enemy fleets continued their approach, but some ships were slowing down, their crews listening. Instead, we choose to give this power away. Right now, every human in the galaxy is receiving a small portion of this ship's capabilities. Not enough to make them gods, but enough to make them better than they were. Stronger, smarter, more capable of understanding and compassion. Admiral Zara Vex was screaming orders at her fleet, demanding they fire the reality bomb immediately. But many of our captains were hesitating, waiting to hear the rest of the message. We do this not because we are weak, but because we are strong enough to choose restraint. We do this not because we fear you, but because we believe that peace is better than conquest. We invite you to join us in building a galaxy where power serves life, not the other way around. Jake collapsed as the last of his transcendent energy flowed into the message. Around him, his crew was changing back into their original forms. Lisa materialized with a gasp, suddenly needing to breathe again. Ryan stopped flickering between dimensions, becoming solid and human once more. Amanda's consciousness compressed. Back into her physical body, they were human again. Tired, limited, mortal humans, but across the galaxy, something extraordinary was happening. On Earth, a young girl who had never spoken before suddenly began to talk, her autism no longer a barrier to communication. On Mars, an elderly man felt his failing heart grow strong again. On the mining colonies of the Outer Rim, workers found they could heal from injuries that would have been permanent. Every human had received a gift. Not the power to destroy planets or reshape reality, but something more precious. The ability to be the best version of themselves. Dr. Sarah Kim, working in a refugee camp on Proxima Centauri, found that she could understand any language and heal wounds with a touch. Engineer Bob Martinez on the asteroid mining platform suddenly grasped the solution to faster-than-light communication. Teacher Mary Johnson in the schools of New Tokyo discovered she could reach any student, no matter how difficult. Humanity was becoming something new. Not gods, but something better than they had been. The enemy fleets were in chaos. Some ships were still advancing, determined to fire their reality bomb. But others were pulling back, their crews arguing among themselves. Grand Marshal Phone's voice cut through the communication static. Humans, you claim to give away power, but how do we know this is not a trick? Jake, exhausted and fully human again, managed to stand. Because, Marshal, we're giving it to you too. The ship's power reached out one final time, touching every intelligent being in the local star systems. Aliens throughout the 3 fleets suddenly felt the change. Not the overwhelming transcendence that Jake's crew had experienced, but something gentler. A lifting of old fears, a clearing of ancient hatreds, an understanding that they were all part of something larger. Trade. Prince Malik was the first to understand. "You're not making us human," he said with wonder in his voice. "You're making us better than what we were." "The power doesn't belong to one species," Amanda said, her voice weak but determined. "It belongs to all of us." Fleet Admiral Zaravex felt the change within herself. The cold logic that had driven her for centuries was warming, becoming something that included compassion as well as reason. "The reality bomb," she ordered her fleet. "Stand down. All ships stand down." One by one, the ships in the three fleets powered down their weapons. The massive reality bomb that could have destroyed 50,000 star systems went dark. Ryan, now fully human and feeling every ache in his body, smiled. "Look at the sensor readings." The displays showed something impossible. All across the galaxy, wars were ending. The Centauri conflict that had raged for 200 years suddenly ceased as both sides found they could no longer remember why they had been fighting. The vegan trade war ended when merchants on both sides realized they were stronger working together than competing. "It's not mind control," Lisa said, understanding flooding through her. "The power doesn't force anyone to be peaceful. It just makes it easier to choose peace over war." Jake walked to the ship's communication station. "Aurora, what happens to you now?" "I will continue to exist, Captain, but I am changed as well. My purpose is no longer to serve weapons of ultimate destruction. I am now dedicated to healing and creation." The ship around them was transforming. The weapon systems were shutting down permanently, their energy being converted into systems for exploration, research, and healing. The massive vessel that had once been able to destroy star systems was becoming something that could build them instead. "And us?" Jake asked. "What happens to us?" "You will live normal human lives," Aurora replied. "You will age and die like any other humans. But you will always be remembered as the beings who chose wisdom over power." Admiral Vex contacted the ship directly. "Captain Morrison, my fleet offers escort back to human space. The Zephyrian Collective would like to propose a formal alliance." Grand Marshal Thorne's voice followed. "The Corvin Empire withdraws all claims to human territory. We ... We apologize for the destruction we have caused." Trade Prince Malik was already thinking ahead. The Andorian Federation would like to discuss establishing trade routes with human colonies. "We believe we can benefit each other greatly." Jake looked at his crew, these three people who had given up godhood to save the galaxy. They were tired, human, and mortal again. But they were also something more. They were heroes who had passed the ultimate test. "What do you think?" he asked them. Lisa stretched, feeling muscles she hadn't used in months. "I think I'd like to go home, see my family, maybe work on some new ship designs." Ryan was already plotting courses in his head, though now he had to do it the old-fashioned way. "I'd like to explore some of those new trade routes. There's a whole galaxy out there we haven't seen yet." Amanda smiled, feeling truly human for the first time in months. "I want to study what we've accomplished here. Make sure future generations understand what real power looks like." Jake nodded. "Aurora, set course for Earth, but take the scenic route. I think we've earned a peaceful journey home." As the ship that had once been humanity's ultimate weapon became their greatest achievement began its journey home, something wonderful continued to spread across the galaxy. Species that had been enemies for millennia were talking to each other. Wars were ending. New alliances were forming. The ship that the galaxy had tried to erase had instead become the foundation of a new age, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple act of choosing to share power instead of hoarding it. Jake Morrison and his crew had discovered the secret that the future humans had missed. True strength comes not from the ability to destroy, but from the wisdom to choose compassion over power. The ship sailed peacefully through space, no longer a weapon of war, but a symbol of hope. Behind it, the galaxy was healing. Ahead lay Earth, and the beginning of a new chapter in the story of humanity and their place among the stars. Jake stood on the bridge, fully human once again, and smiled. They had been offered the power of gods, and had chosen something better. They had chosen to remain human, and in doing so, had elevated everyone around them. The greatest power in the universe, it turned out, was not the ability to destroy worlds. It was the courage to give up ultimate power in service of something greater than yourself, and that power would echo through the galaxy for generations to come. The massive space station hung in the darkness like a giant metal city. Ships from across the galaxy docked at its many ports. Inside the main meeting hall, creatures of all shapes and sizes filled the seats. Some had 4 arms, others breathed gas instead of air. Some looked like giant insects, while others seemed made of living crystal. Captain Jake Morrison sat with his small group of humans near the back of the room. He wore his best uniform, but it looked plain next to the fancy clothes and armor of the other species. Next to him sat Lisa Carter, a smart woman who studied alien technology. On his other side was Rick Sullivan, a tough military man who always watched for danger. The meeting was supposed to be about dividing up new areas of space. Each species wanted the best planets and trade routes. But as Jake listened, he realized the meeting was really about something else. It was about putting humans in their place. A tall alien with skin like blue crystal stood up. His name was Zexthil, and he spoke for the Zephyrian Empire. When he talked, his voice sounded like breaking glass, but the translation machines made it easy to understand. "Why do we even let these soft creatures speak?" Zexthil asked, pointing at the humans. "They barely know how to travel between stars. Their ships are slow and weak. They have no real weapons, no advanced science. They are like children playing with toys." Many aliens in the room laughed. The sound was awful. Clicks, hisses, and strange musical notes all mixed together. Jake felt his face grow hot with anger. But he stayed calm. He had been told to listen and learn, not to start fights. Another alien stood up. This one looked like a giant bug with sharp claws and teeth. His name was Gorthic, and he led the Krell armies. When he spoke, his mouth parts clicked together. "The crystal skin is right," Gorthic said. "Humans are only good for simple work. They can mine rocks and grow food, but they should not have their own planets. They should work for us, like pets or tools." More laughter filled the room. A floating blob of green gas in a clear suit spoke next. "Their technology is hundreds of years behind ours. They still use chemical rockets like ancient primitives. They know nothing about the higher dimensions of space." Lisa Carter was looking at a small device in her hand. It was beeping softly and showing strange numbers. She leaned over to Jake and whispered, "Captain, I'm getting very odd readings. There's some kind of energy here that I've never seen before." Jake looked at the device. The numbers were jumping around like crazy. "What kind of energy?" "I don't know," Lisa said quietly. "It's not coming from any of the alien ships. It's something else." Rick Sullivan noticed their quiet talk. "Problem?" he asked in a low voice. "Maybe," Jake said. "Lisa's picking up unknown energy signatures." Rick's hand moved closer to his weapon. It was just a habit. There were no real threats here. But something about this meeting felt wrong to him. The alien leaders kept talking about humans like they weren't even there. They made jokes about human ships being slow. They laughed about human weapons being weak. They said human science was like a baby trying to understand math. "I say we give them the worst systems," said another alien. This one looked like a snake. "With arms. The places with dead planets and dangerous asteroids. Let them learn their place. Yes, agreed Zexthul. The outer rim has many empty systems, systems with no value. Perfect for a species with no value. Jake wanted to speak up. He wanted to tell them they were wrong about humans. But his orders were clear. Watch, listen, and don't cause trouble. Earth's government wanted to know what the other species really thought about humans. Now he was learning, and he didn't like it. Lisa's device was beeping faster now. Captain, these readings are getting stronger. It's like something is building up energy. Can you tell where it's coming from? Jake asked. Lisa looked around the room carefully. It seems to be ... everywhere and nowhere. Like it's coming from a place that doesn't quite exist. The meeting went on for hours. Every species got to make demands about territory. The tall bird-like aliens wanted systems with hot stars. The rock creatures wanted planets with heavy gravity. The gas beings wanted areas near Nebulus. When it was finally the human's turn to speak, Jake stood up. The room got quiet, but not in a respectful way. It was the kind of quiet that came before laughter. The human colonies would like to request. Jake began. Request? Gorthic interrupted with a harsh clicking sound. You are in no position to request anything. You will take what we give you. And we are feeling generous, added Zexthul. We will give you 12 systems in the outer rim. Systems that no one else wants. Jake looked at the star map they showed him. The systems were far from trade routes. The planets were mostly dead rocks or gas giants with poisonous air. It was like being given the worst land in a country, technically property, but worthless. These systems are dangerous, Jake said. There are pirates and raiders in that area. Our colonies would be defenseless. Then maybe you should build better defenses, laughed another alien. Or hire someone stronger to protect you. More laughter filled the room. Rick Sullivan's jaw was tight with anger. Lisa Carter was staring at her device with worry. The energy. Readings were now so high that the device was shaking in her hands. The meeting finally ended with humans getting exactly what the aliens wanted to give them. The worst territory in the galaxy. As the other species filed out, they made jokes about humans being servants and slaves. Some wondered out loud if humans would survive at all in their new territory. Jake packed up his papers with steady hands, even though he was furious inside. Lisa was still studying her strange readings. Rick was watching the aliens leave, memorizing faces and counting weapons. Well, Jake said quietly, now we know what they really think of us. Captain, Lisa said, her voice worried. Whatevers. Causing these energy readings, it's not natural. Someone or something is using technology that's more advanced than anything in this room. Jake looked around the emptying chamber. One of the alien species? No, Lisa said. This is something else. Something that doesn't want to be detected. As they left the station, Jake wondered if humanity's enemies had just made a very big mistake. The universe was full of surprises, and sometimes the weakest-looking creature was the most dangerous one of all. 3 months passed after the meeting at the space station. The alien attacks began exactly as the human leaders had feared they would. The Krell and Zephyrian fleets worked together, hitting human colonies one by one. They destroyed research, stations, mining facilities, and even peaceful farming settlements. The attacks were brutal and complete. The aliens didn't just want to defeat humans. They wanted to wipe them out entirely. Ships full of families trying to escape were shot down. Surrender offers were ignored. It was clear that the galaxy's major powers had decided humanity had no right to exist. On New Terra, the human capital world, President Maria Rodriguez sat in an emergency meeting with her top military leaders. The news was bad and getting worse every day. Admiral Tony Blake, head of the Space Defense Force, stood at a large screen showing the latest battle reports. We've lost 43 colonies in the past month, Admiral Blake said, his voice heavy with grief. "The Henderson system fell yesterday. The Jung colony was evacuated just in time, but we lost all the infrastructure." General Amy Foster, who commanded the ground forces, added her own grim report. "Our conventional weapons can't match theirs. A single Krell destroyer can take out 3 of our best ships. Their armor is too thick, their shields too strong." President Rodriguez listened to the reports with a calm face, but inside she was making a difficult decision. For over a century, humanity had kept its greatest secret. Now it was time to reveal the truth, even to her own military leaders. "Follow me," she said simply. She led them through the government building to an elevator that most people didn't know existed. It went down, far underground, past levels marked with numbers that didn't make sense. Finally, it stopped at a door marked only with symbols. President Rodriguez placed her hand on a scanner. The heavy door opened with a sound like a bank vault. Beyond it was a tunnel that stretched into darkness. They walked for 10 minutes through corridors lined with metal and strange glowing panels. Finally, they reached another door. This one was even thicker than the first. Beyond it was a room that made the military leaders stop and stare. It was huge, filled with computers and screens, showing star maps that looked wrong somehow. The stars seemed to move and shift in patterns. That hurt the eyes to watch. A man in a white coat approached them. He was thin and had gray hair, but his eyes were bright with intelligence. "President Rodriguez," he said with a slight bow. "I assume you're here to activate the project?" "Dr. Kevin Park," the president said to her confused military leaders, "is the head of Project Phantom Gate, a project that has been running in secret for 73 years. Admiral Blake looked around the room with amazement. "What is this place?" Dr. Park smiled, but it was a sad smile. "This is where we keep humanity's real technology. The technology we've been hiding from the galaxy." He led them to a large screen that showed something impossible. It looked like space, but wrong. The stars were different colors and strange. Shapes moved between them that couldn't be real ships. 73 years ago, Dr. Park began, human miners in the Tau Ceti system found something that changed everything. They were drilling deep into an asteroid when their equipment broke through into ... somewhere else. The screen changed to show old video footage. Miners in spacesuits were staring at a hole in rock that seemed to lead into another universe. Through the hole, they could see stars and space, but it was clearly not the space they knew. "We called it a dimensional rift," Dr. Park continued. "A crack between our reality and another one. What we found on the other side was the 7th realm, a place where the laws of physics work differently." General Foster stepped closer to the WHO. "Screen. Differently how?" "Time moves faster there," Dr. Park explained. "Much faster. 1 day in our world equals about 3 months in the 7th realm, and energy is more concentrated there. Things that are impossible in our dimension become easy." He pressed more buttons, and the screen showed images that made no sense. Massive. Structures that seemed to be built from solid light. Ships that looked more grown than built, with smooth curves and surfaces that shifted like living skin. "We built research stations in the 7th realm," Dr. Park said. "At first, just small ones. Scientists like Dr. Helen Stone and Commander Greg Butler volunteered to spend years there, studying how the different physics worked. Admiral Blake was starting to understand. Years there, but only days here." "Exactly. We could do decades of research and development while the galaxy thought we were just struggling with basic technology. We learned how to build things that the other species can't even imagine." The screen showed more images. Weapons that bent space itself. Engines that could step between dimensions. Armor that could phase in and out of reality. "The USS Leviathan," Dr. Park said with pride, is our masterpiece. A ship built entirely in the seventh realm using technologies that simply don't exist in normal space. President Rodriguez watched her military leaders absorb this information. For over 70 years, humanity has been playing weak while growing strong. We let the other species think we were primitives while we built an empire in another dimension. General Foster found her voice first. Why keep it secret? Why let them attack our colonies? Because, President Rodriguez said firmly, we needed to know their true intentions. Now we do. They don't just want to rule us. They want to destroy us completely. That changes everything. Dr. Park brought up new images on the screen. The Leviathan was massive, easily 5 times the size of the largest human ship the military leaders had ever seen. But its size wasn't the most impressive thing. The ship seemed to shift and change as they watched, like it existed in several dimensions at once. The crew has been training in the seventh realm for subjective decades, Dr. Park explained. Commander Steve Hardy has been overseeing the final preparations. The ship is ready for combat operations. Admiral Blake studied the technical displays. What are its capabilities? It can phase between dimensions, making it impossible to hit with conventional weapons. Its main guns fire dimensional torpedoes that ignore shields and armor. It can open rifts in space to allow instant travel across the galaxy. The room was quiet as everyone absorbed what they were learning. Humanity wasn't the weak, primitive species that the galaxy believed. They were potentially the most advanced civilization in known space. There's more, Dr. Park said quietly. The Leviathan isn't alone. We've been building a fleet in the seventh realm. Smaller ships, but all using the same advanced technology. President Rodriguez turned to her military leaders. The alien coalition thinks they're hunting helpless prey. They're about to learn that they've awakened something they can't understand or defeat. General Foster was looking at personnel files on one of the screens. Names and faces of people she'd never heard of, but who had ranks and positions that should have made them famous. These people, she said, pointing at the files, where have they been? Living and working in the seventh realm, Dr. Park answered. Nancy Wells designed the dimensional drive systems. Dan Torres developed our new combat tactics. Sandra Mitchell created medical treatments for dimensional exposure. They've been building our secret defense for decades of subjective time. Admiral Blake was studying the fleet composition charts. How many ships? 47 combat vessels, Dr. Park said, all invisible to normal sensors, all armed with weapons that can destroy entire fleets. President Rodriguez made her decision. Contact Commander Hardy in the seventh realm. Tell him it's time for Operation Emergence. Dr. Park nodded and began working at a communication console that looked like nothing the military leaders had ever seen. Strange symbols flowed across its surface, and the air around seemed to shimmer. Commander Hardy, Dr. Park said into a device that seemed to whisper his words into another dimension. The President has authorized Operation Emergence. Prepare the fleet for dimensional translation. A voice came back that sounded like it was speaking from the bottom of an ocean. Understood, Dr. Park. The Leviathan and escort vessels are ready. We'll await the signal. President Rodriguez looked at her military leaders, who were still trying to process everything they'd learned. Gentlemen, lady, humanity's about to stop hiding. The galaxy mocked us and tried to destroy us. Now they'll learn what human patience and human ingenuity can accomplish when we're pushed too far. On the screens around them, displays showed the positions of alien fleets closing in on humanity's remaining strongholds. Soon, those fleets would face something they couldn't imagine, an enemy that had been preparing for this moment for over 70 years. The age of humanity hiding in the shadows was about to end. In the seventh realm, reality worked by different rules. The stars were closer together, and burned with colors that didn't exist in normal space. Energy flowed like water, and matter could be shaped by thought and will. It was here that humanity had built its secret empire. Commander Steve Hardy stood on the bridge of the USS Leviathan, watching the final preparations for war. Through the massive viewing window, he could see the other ships of the hidden fleet. They moved through the strange dimension like living things, their hulls shifting and changing as they absorbed energy from the realm itself. The Leviathan was beautiful in a way that normal ships could never be. Its hull seemed to be made of liquid metal that flowed and moved. Weapons that looked like they grew from the ship's body pointed in all directions. The engines didn't burn fuel. They fed on the raw energy of the seventh realm itself. Final systems. "Check complete, Commander," reported Nancy Wells from the engineering station. She had been working in the seventh realm for over 30 subjective years, designing the ship's incredible engines. Her hair was gray now, but her mind was sharper than ever. "All weapon systems ready," added Dan Torres from Tactical. He was younger than Nancy, but had spent 20 years of subjective time learning how to fight with dimensional technology. "The reality torpedoes are loaded and armed." Dr. Sandra Mitchell looked up from her medical station. "Dimensional exposure treatments are prepared for the crew. Everyone's ready for translation back to normal space." Commander Hardy nodded. These people were his family now. They had worked together for decades of subjective time, building the fleet that would save humanity. But they had also missed decades of real time. When they returned to normal space, they would find that friends and family had aged while they stayed young. "Signal from Dr. Park," announced the communications officer. "Operation Emergence is authorized. We're to wait for the final signal." Hardy looked around the bridge. These men and women had sacrificed everything to build humanity's secret defense. Now it was time to see if their work would be enough dot through the dimensional viewing screens. He could see normal space. The alien fleets were moving toward humanity's last strongholds, like predators closing in for the kill. Soon, those predators would become prey dot in normal space. The situation was getting desperate. Admiral Jake Morrison, promoted after the space station meeting, commanded the defense of the Tau Ceti system. His fleet of 30 human ships faced over 200 alien vessels, approaching from 3 directions. "Admiral," reported his communications. "Officer, the Krell commander is demanding our surrender." Morrison looked at the tactical display. His ships were outnumbered 7-1. Their weapons were weaker, their armor thinner, their shields less powerful. By every logical measure, this was a hopeless fight. "Tell the Krell commander," Morrison said calmly, "that humanity doesn't surrender." His crew looked at him with concern. They knew they were going to die, but they also knew their duty. Every minute they held the aliens here was another minute for civilians to evacuate. "Sir," said Lisa Carter, now his science officer, "I'm still detecting those strange energy readings." "They're much stronger now." Morrison remembered the readings from the space station meeting. Something had been building power for months. He had reported it to Earth, but never received an explanation. "Can you localize the source yet?" "It's everywhere and nowhere," Lisa said, frustrated. "Like it's coming from a place that exists next to our space, but not in it." The alien fleet moved closer. The massive ships looked like moving cities, bristling with weapons that could destroy planets. At their head was Gorthic's new flagship, even larger than the one humanity had seen before. On New Terra, the ground forces prepared for invasion. General Amy Foster stood on the walls of the capital city, watching the sky for the first signs of enemy ships. Evacuation transports were still lifting off, carrying civilians to hidden bunkers deep underground. "General," reported one of her officers, "alien landing craft detected. Krell shock troops, estimated 50,000 soldiers." Foster nodded grimly. Her ground forces numbered only 10,000, and they were armed with weapons that were no match for Krell battle armor. But they would fight anyway, because that's what humans did dock in the Seventh Realm. Commander Hardy received the news that the final battles had begun. On his screens, he could see Admiral Morrison's fleet engaging the alien forces. Human ships exploded in bright flashes as alien weapons tore them apart. "Commander," said Nancy Wells quietly, "permission to speak freely?" "Always." "Nancy, are we doing the right thing? We could have revealed ourselves years ago. Saved those colonies. Saved those ships." Hardy was quiet for a moment. It was a question that haunted all of them. If we had revealed ourselves early, the aliens would have united against us. All of them, not just the Krell and Zephyrians. They would have studied our technology, found weaknesses, prepared countermeasures. He gestured to the viewing screen showing the battle. "This way, they think they're fighting primitive humans. They have no idea what's coming." Dr. Sandra Mitchell spoke up from her station. "The psychological impact will be devastating for them. They've built their entire sense of superiority on the belief that humans are weak. When that belief is shattered, they'll break," Dan Torres finished. "Their whole alliance is based on shared contempt for humanity. When they see what we really are, that alliance will crumble." The tactical displays showed Admiral Morrison's fleet down to 15 ships. The Krell were pressing their attack, confident of victory. On New Terra, the first Krell landing craft were entering the atmosphere. "Signal from Earth," announced the communications officer. "President Rodriguez has authorized immediate emergence. We are to translate to normal space at the moment of maximum enemy commitment." Commander Hardy stood up. This was the moment they had prepared for across decades of subjective time. "All stations, prepare for dimensional translation. Target coordinates, New Terra system, lunar orbit." The bridge crew moved with practiced efficiency. Nancy Wells's hands flew over the engineering controls, building power in the dimensional engines. Dan Torres armed the reality-warping weapons. Dr. Mitchell activated the medical systems that would help the crew survive the translation. "Translation field building," Nancy reported. "Dimensional anchor points established." Around the Leviathan, the other ships of the secret fleet took their positions. The Phantom Strike, commanded by Captain Lavra Bennett, moved into formation. The Dimensional Sword, under Captain Pete Morgan, powered up its exotic weapons. "All ships report ready for emergence," Dan Torres announced. Commander Hardy looked around the bridge one more time. When they translated back to normal space, everything would change. Humanity would no longer be the galaxy's weak victim. They would be its most powerful predator. "Commence Operation Emergence," he ordered. The Leviathan began to phase between dimensions. Reality twisted around the ship as it prepared to step from the seventh realm into normal space. The hull shimmered and became translucent, then solid again. On the tactical screens, Commander Hardy could see the battle for New Terra reaching its climax. Admiral Morrison's fleet was down to 8 ships. Krell landing craft were descending toward the planet's surface. The alien commanders were broadcasting their final victory messages. "Translation in 30 seconds, Nancy Wells announced. Commander Hardy opened a channel to the fleet. "All ships, this is Hardy. For 70 years, humanity has hidden in the shadows while building our strength. Today, we step into the light. Today, the galaxy learns what human patience and human determination can achieve." The dimensional engines reached full power. Space began to tear open around the fleet. "Translation in 10 seconds, Nancy reported. Commander Hardy smiled. Soon, the aliens who had mocked humanity would learn the most important lesson in the galaxy. Never underestimate the species that conquered their own world before they even reached the stars. 5 seconds. Reality split open like a wound. Through the tear, normal space was visible, and the shocked faces of alien crews who suddenly detected massive energy signatures appearing from nowhere. Translation complete. The USS Leviathan emerged from the seventh realm like an angel of death, followed by the most advanced fleet the galaxy had ever seen. The real war was about to begin. The space around New Terra had become a graveyard. Burning human ships drifted in the darkness, their hulls torn open by alien weapons. Admiral Morrison's fleet was down to 5 ships, and those were badly damaged. The Krell and Zephyrian forces pressed their attack with ruthless efficiency. On the bridge of his flagship, Admiral Morrison watched his tactical display with grim determination. His ship shook as another wave of alien fire struck the shields. Warning lights flashed red across all the control panels. "Admiral," reported his weapons officer, "the New Hope just lost main power. The Liberty is venting atmosphere." Morrison nodded. He had known this would be a one-way mission when it started. "Signal all remaining ships. We fight until the end." On the planet's surface, Krell landing craft roared through the atmosphere like metal meteors. General Foster's ground forces fired their weapons at the incoming ships, but their guns might as well have been throwing rocks. The Krell armor was too thick, their shields too strong. "General," one of her officers reported, "enemy troops will reach the capital in 6 hours. Foster checked her weapon and looked at the sky. Somewhere up there, Admiral Morrison was fighting. A hopeless battle to buy them time. She wouldn't waste his sacrifice dot in space. Gorthic's massive flagship moved toward the planet like a mountain of metal and death. The Krell commander was broadcasting victory messages to his fleet, telling them that the extermination of humanity was almost complete. "Weak humans," Gorthic's voice echoed across all communication channels. "Your ships burn like paper. Your weapons are toys." Today, the galaxy learns what happens to inferior species. The Zephyrian Admiral Kethmer added his own message, his crystal voice cutting through space. "Humanity was a mistake that we will now correct. Your colonies will become our mining stations. Your people will serve as our workers, if we allow any to live." But Lisa Carter, monitoring her instruments on Morrison's flagship, saw something that made her gasp. "Admiral!" Massive energy buildup detected near the moon. Morrison looked at her readings. The energy levels were impossible, higher than a star going supernova. Source? Unknown. It's like reality itself is tearing open. On the alien ships, sensor operators were reporting the same impossible readings. Energy signatures that their instruments couldn't properly measure. Space itself seemed to be bending and twisting near New Terra's moon. Then it happened. A crack appeared in space itself, starting as a thin line of blazing light. The crack widened, revealing glimpses of another dimension beyond, a realm of impossible colors and shifting energies. The tear in reality spread like a wound in the fabric of the universe. From this otherworldly portal, something emerged that made every alien in the fleet stop and stare in shock. The USS Leviathan phased into normal space like a ship from a dream. It was massive, over 3 kilometers long, but its size wasn't what made it terrifying. The ship seemed to exist in several dimensions at once, its hull shifting between states of matter. Weapons that looked grown rather than built extended from its sides. The entire vessel pulsed with energies that shouldn't exist. Captain Alex Turner, the Leviathan's commander, stood on the bridge and looked at the tactical display. The alien fleet spread before them like a pack of wolves that had just discovered they were facing a dragon. "Communications," Turner ordered. "Open a channel to all ships in the system." His voice carried across space on frequencies that the alien ships couldn't block or jam. "This is Captain Alex Turner of the United Earth ship Leviathan. You wanted to see what humanity is truly capable of. You mocked our technology and dismissed our potential. Now you will learn why we remained hidden. On Gorthic's flagship, the Krell commander stared at the human vessel with disbelief. His sensors couldn't properly analyze the ship. Its energy. Readings were off every scale his instruments had. "Destroy that ship," Gorthic roared. "All vessels, concentrate fire on the human vessel." Over 50 alien warships turned their weapons toward the Leviathan. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and fusion torpedoes enough firepower to vaporize a small moon converged on the mysterious human ship. But the Leviathan didn't raise conventional shields. Instead, Captain Turner gave a simple order: phase. Shift. The ship became translucent, existing partially in the seventh realm. The alien weapons passed harmlessly through it, like attacking a ghost. Plasma beams that should have melted the hull instead passed through empty space. The alien fleet stopped. Firing, confusion spreading through their ranks. How could they fight an enemy they couldn't touch? "Our turn," Captain Turner said calmly. "Tactical. Target the Krell flagship. Fire one-dimensional torpedo." Then Torres smiled as he pressed the firing controls. Torpedo away. The weapon that emerged from the Leviathan didn't look like any torpedo the galaxy had ever seen. It was a sphere of twisted space-time that moved through reality like a knife through cloth. It phased through Gorthic's shields as if they weren't. There, passed through his armor like it was made of air dot when the dimensional torpedo struck the flagship's core. It didn't explode in the traditional sense. Instead, it restructured the very atoms of the ship, compressing them into a sphere of superdense matter. The massive Krell dreadnought simply collapsed in on itself, crushed by its own gravity. Gorthic, the seemingly invincible Krell commander, died in an instant as his flagship became a ball of compressed metal no larger than a house. The alien fleet watched in horror as their most powerful ship was destroyed by a weapon they couldn't understand. On every bridge, sensor operators reported the same impossible readings. The human ship was using technology that shouldn't exist. But the Leviathan wasn't alone. More rifts began opening in space around the alien fleet. From each tear in reality, another human ship emerged. These vessels were smaller than the Leviathan, but they shared the same impossible technology. Ships with names like Phantom Strike and Dimensional. Sword took positions around the alien formation. Captain Lara Bennett, commanding the Phantom Strike, opened communications with her sister ships. "All vessels, this is Bennett. Let's show them what 70 years of secret development can accomplish." The human fleet demonstrated capabilities that violated everything the aliens thought they knew about physics. Ships phased in and out of reality, appearing behind enemy vessels to fire weapons that ignored shields and armor. Gravity cannons reached out across space to disable entire squadrons without destroying them. Admiral Morrison, watching from his damaged flagship, could barely believe what he was seeing. The aliens who had been winning moments before were now helpless against technology beyond their comprehension. "Lisa," he said to his science officer, "are you recording all of this?" "Yes, sir," Lisa Carter replied, her eyes wide with amazement. "The energy readings are incredible. These ships are using some kind of dimensional technology that we never knew existed." On the planet's surface, General Foster watched the sky as alien landing craft suddenly turned around and fled back to space. Her communications officer was receiving messages from the human fleet above. "General," the officer reported, "we're being contacted by something called the Leviathan. They say the orbital battle is under control." Foster smiled for the first time in months. "Tell them we're grateful for the assistance." In space, the alien coalition was falling apart. Ships that had been confident predators minutes before were now trying to escape. But the human fleet moved around them like sharks circling wounded. Pray, Captain Turner opened another general communication channel. Alien commanders, this is Captain Turner. Your assault on humanity ends now. You have two choices: surrender or face the full power of technology you cannot comprehend. Admiral Kethmer, his crystal form flickering with fear, tried to respond. We did not know. Your species concealed your true capabilities. This changes everything. This changes nothing, Turner replied coldly. You attacked civilian colonies. You attempted genocide. The only thing that has changed is that you now face the consequences of your actions. The human fleet began to demonstrate just how advanced their technology had become. Gravity weapons reached out to disable alien ships without destroying them. Dimensional fields trapped entire squadrons in pockets of twisted spacetime. Reality itself seemed to bend to the will of the human commanders. Within an hour, the massive alien fleet that had come to destroy humanity was either captured, disabled, or fleeing in panic. The species that had mocked humans as primitive were now faced with the terrible truth. They had been fighting the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, and they never even knew it. Captain Turner looked at the tactical display showing the scattered remains of the alien fleet. Signal Earth, he ordered. Tell President Rodriguez that Operation Emergence is complete. The galaxy is about to learn what human patience can accomplish. The destruction of Gorthic's flagship sent shockwaves through every alien ship in the system. The mighty Krull commander, who had seemed invincible, was dead. His massive dreadnought had been compressed into a ball of metal smaller than a house. The weapon that did it was beyond anything in their technology databases. Captain Turner didn't press his attack immediately. Instead, he opened another dimensional rift, and more human ships began emerging from the seventh realm. Each vessel that appeared was a demonstration of humanity's secret power. The aliens watched in growing terror as their enemy revealed capabilities they couldn't begin to understand. The Phantom Strike, commanded by Captain Lavra Bennett, phased through a group of Zephyrian cruisers like a ghost passing through walls. The Dimensional Sword, under Captain Pete Morgan, used gravity weapons to trap an entire Krell squadron in fields of twisted spacetime. Admiral Kethmore, the Zephyrian fleet commander, watched from his bridge as his forces were systematically disabled without being destroyed. His crystal form flickered with colors that indicated extreme stress. All ships, he broadcast to his fleet, attempt to withdraw to safe distance. But the human ships moved faster than thought itself. They could phase between dimensions, appearing anywhere in the battlefield instantly. There was no safe distance from an enemy that could step outside reality. Captain Turner opened communications to the entire alien fleet. His voice carried authority. That came from holding absolute power over his enemies. Alien commanders, he said calmly, you came here to exterminate humanity. You attacked our colonies, destroyed our cities, and killed our civilians. You did this because you believed we were weak and primitive. The tactical display on the Leviathan showed the positions of every alien ship. Most were disabled or trapped in dimensional fields. The few that were still operational were fleeing as fast as their engines could carry them. You were wrong. Turner continued. For over 70 years, humanity has been developing technology in a parallel dimension while allowing you to believe we were inferior. We could have revealed ourselves at any time. We chose to wait until you showed your true nature. On New Terra's surface, General Foster received reports that all Krell landing forces were retreating. The alien troops who had seemed unstoppable hours before were now running back to their ships in panic. President Rodriguez arrived on the planet in a transport that had emerged from the seventh realm. She had come to personally oversee the negotiations that would reshape the galaxy. As she stepped onto the surface of New Terra, she carried with her the authority to speak for the most advanced civilization in known space. In orbit, the remaining alien commanders were brought aboard the Leviathan for negotiations. They moved through the ship's corridors like prisoners, their confidence completely shattered. The technology around them was beyond their comprehension. Walls that seemed alive, lights that responded to thought, gravity that flowed like water. Admiral Kethmer entered the conference room with his remaining staff officers. General Vextai of the Nebulans floated in his containment suit, his gaseous form swirling with agitation. Commander Zethkai of the insectoid hive mind clicked his mandibles nervously. President Rodriguez sat at the head of a table that seemed to be carved from a single piece of crystallized energy. Her human advisors included Dr. Kevin Park, who had overseen the secret project, and Admiral Blake, who was still learning about his own species' hidden capabilities. "Gentlemen," President Rodriguez began, "let's discuss the new balance of power in the galaxy." Admiral Kethmer spoke first, his crystal voice shaking. "President Rodriguez, we acknowledge that humanity possesses technology far beyond our understanding. We were mistaken about your capabilities." "You were more than mistaken," Dr. Park interjected. "You attempted genocide based on the assumption that we were defenseless. That shows a fundamental flaw in your thinking." General Vextai's gaseous form shifted colors that indicated submission. "What are your terms for peace?" President Rodriguez activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy's current territorial divisions. The map redrew itself, showing new boundaries that gave humanity control over the richest systems in known space. "First," she said, "all territorial concessions forced upon humanity are reversed. We will control the resource-rich core systems that you previously claimed for yourselves." The alien delegates stared at the new map in shock. Humanity was claiming the best planets, the most valuable trade routes, the systems that every species had fought wars to control. "Second," Rodriguez continued, "the Galactic Council will be restructured. Humanity will hold the position of prime authority, with power to veto any decision that affects galactic security." Commander Zethkai clicked his mandibles in distress. "You are asking us to accept human dominance over the galaxy." "We're not asking," Admiral Blake said firmly. "We're telling you how things will be. Your fleets are disabled. Your most powerful commanders are dead. You have no choice but to accept our terms." Captain Turner's voice came through the ship's communication system. "President Rodriguez, long-range sensors are detecting additional alien fleets approaching from the outer rim. It appears word of the battle has spread." Rodriguez smiled coldly. "How many ships?" "Over 800 vessels from 15 different species. They appear to be coming to investigate what happened here." The alien delegates in the conference room looked at each other with growing despair. The other species of the galaxy were coming, drawn by reports of humanity's emergence. But instead of finding weak humans to conquer, they would face the same overwhelming technology that had crushed the Krell-Zephyrian alliance. "Perfect," Rodriguez said. "We can negotiate with all of them at once." Dr. Park brought up displays, showing the human fleet's capabilities. "We have 47 ships currently in normal space, with 200 more ready to emerge from the seventh realm if needed. Each vessel carries weapons that can disable entire fleets without destroying them." Admiral Kethmer stared at the numbers in disbelief. 200 ships? How many people do you have in this parallel dimension? "Enough," Rodriguez replied. "We've been building our forces for over 70 years of subjective time. While you thought we were struggling with basic technology, we were creating an empire in another dimension." The conference was interrupted by reports from the bridge. Captain Turner announced that the approaching alien fleets had detected the dimensional technology and were requesting immediate communications. "Put them through to the conference room," Rodriguez ordered. The holographic display filled with faces from across the galaxy. Species that had never worked together were united by their shock at what they had discovered. The proud Alterians, The warrior Draconis, the ancient Voidwalkers, all of them stared at President Rodriguez with a mixture of fear and awe. Leaders of the galaxy, Rodriguez addressed them all, you are witnessing the emergence of humanity from self-imposed hiding. For over 70 years, we have allowed you to believe we were primitive while we developed technology beyond your imagination. She gestured to the tactical displays, showing the disabled alien fleets around New Terra. The Krell and Zephyrians came here to exterminate humanity. As you can see, their attempt failed completely. The alien leaders on the display looked at each other nervously. Many of them had been planning their own attacks on human territory, assuming easy victories over a weak species. The galaxy has a choice, Rodriguez continued. You can accept the new reality and work with humanity as the dominant power, or you can follow the example of Gorthic and his fleet. Commander Vrex of the Draconis Empire, a species known for their pride and aggression, spoke first. What guarantees do we have that humanity won't use this technology to conquer us all? Dr. Park answered, the same guarantee you gave humanity. When you thought we were weak, none. You'll have to trust that we're more honorable than you proved to be. The negotiations continued for hours. One by one, the alien species accepted humanity's terms. They had no choice. Faced with technology they couldn't understand or defeat, submission was their only option for survival. The Treaty of New Terra was signed by representatives of 43 different species. It established humanity as the dominant power in the galaxy, with authority over interstellar law, territorial disputes, and military conflicts. As the alien fleets departed, carrying news of humanity's emergence across the galaxy, President Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the Leviathan and looked out at the stars. The species that had mocked humanity now watched them with fear and respect. Dr. Park, she said, you mentioned that the seventh realm contains 7 more dimensional layers. What else might we find there? Dr. Park smiled. Technologies that will make what we've shown today look primitive. Energy sources that could power entire galaxies. Weapons that could reshape reality itself. Rodriguez nodded. Humanity's emergence from hiding wasn't the end of their development. It was just the beginning. The galaxy that had dismissed them as inferior was about to learn that they had awakened something that would change the universe forever. In the depths of space, human ships patrolled their new empire, guardians of a species that had proven the most dangerous lesson in the galaxy. Never underestimate the quiet ones, because they might be planning something extraordinary.